So often, we equate kindness and generosity with making ourselves available to anyone who asks. We say yes when we want to say no. We stretch ourselves thin, trying to accommodate everyone. And then we wonder why we feel drained, unappreciated, or even taken for granted. Being a giving person is beautiful, but when you make yourself available for everyone, all the time, you dilute your own value. Your presence stops feeling like a gift and starts feeling like something people can demand without effort. When you make yourself constantly available to everyone, you begin to notice that the appreciation for your presence starts to fade. It isn't always intentional on the part of others, but it's a natural human tendency to devalue what is always there. Think about how you treat something rare compared to something you see every day. A rare gem is admired, protected, and spoken about with awe, while something ordinary may go unnoticed even though it also has worth. This same psychological principle applies to how people perceive your time, energy, and presence. When you are constantly at someone's disposal, they stop realizing the effort, sacrifice, and thoughtfulness it takes for you to be there. Instead of being grateful, they start assuming it's just what you do. Over time, this constant availability teaches people to view you as a resource rather than a person. They may not consciously think of it in those terms, but their behavior reflects it. They begin to expect you to answer calls or messages immediately, to rearrange your priorities to meet theirs, and to step in whenever they need something. The problem is when your presence becomes expected rather than valued, you lose the respect that comes with being seen as intentional and discerning with your time. What's given freely without boundaries rarely commands the same appreciation as what is shared thoughtfully and sparingly. This pattern also affects your own sense of worth. When you are perpetually available, you may start to measure your value by how much you give, how quickly you respond, and how many people you are able to please. Instead of anchoring your worth in who you are, you tie it to how convenient you are to others. This can slowly chip away at your confidence because no matter how much you do, it never seems enough. If you're always available, people will always find new ways to demand your time, leaving you stuck in a cycle of overextending without receiving true appreciation in return. Psychologically, constant availability sends a message that your needs are secondary. Each time you drop what you're doing to meet someone else's expectation, you reinforce the idea in your own mind that their priorities outweigh yours. This imbalance builds resentment, even if you don't want it to. You might not even realize how deeply it affects you until you feel exhausted, drained, and emotionally distant, even from the very people you've been showing up for. The human brain craves balance and fairness in relationships, and when one side gives endlessly while the other takes, the relationship begins to feel one-sided and unfulfilling. From a practical standpoint, being constantly available also weakens the impact of your presence. If you're always there, your absence is never felt, and if your absence is never felt, your presence loses its power. Imagine someone who rarely speaks, but when they do, their words hold great weight because people know it's not something they give carelessly. That same dynamic applies to your availability. When people know your time and attention are intentional, they take your presence more seriously and value it more deeply. Availability without boundaries waters down that significance. Another issue is that being perpetually accessible makes it easy for others to take you for granted without even realizing it. They become accustomed to your reliability and forget that it comes at a cost to you. The favors you do, the time you give, and the sacrifices you make stop feeling like gifts and start feeling like obligations in their eyes. And when something feels like an obligation, gratitude tends to fade. People stop thanking you, stop acknowledging the effort, and simply expect more. This shift can leave you feeling invisible in the very relationships you're pouring yourself into. It's important to recognize that your constant presence does not guarantee deeper relationships or stronger bonds. In fact, it can sometimes create the opposite effect. When you're always there, people may subconsciously feel less urgency to invest in you, to nurture the relationship, or to meet your needs. They might assume you'll always be available regardless of how they treat you. This imbalance leads to shallow connections where you're giving more than you're receiving, leaving you emotionally unfulfilled despite your efforts to be present for everyone. Even beyond relationships, your personal goals and growth can suffer when you're overly available. Every time you say yes to someone else's demand, you're saying no to something of your own. It could be rest, pursuing a passion, or simply recharging so you can function at your best. Over time, those missed opportunities compound, and you realize you've invested more in others than in yourself. This sacrifices your own progress and keeps you from becoming the strongest, healthiest version of yourself, ironically reducing the value you can bring to those who matter most. Another subtle consequence is that your reputation begins to shift. Instead of being seen as someone strong, intentional, and self-respecting, you risk being seen as someone who can always be reached, used, or leaned on without consideration. People may not admire you for your generosity. Instead, they might exploit it. And while some will truly appreciate your kindness, many will only see what they can get from you. By being constantly available, you inadvertently teach others that your time is not scarce and therefore not precious, diminishing the respect they show toward you. Ultimately, being perpetually available erodes the very value you're trying to create. You want people to see you as supportive, dependable, and giving. But when you fail to protect your time, your energy becomes undervalued. People no longer see your presence as a meaningful choice, they see it as a given. This makes your efforts invisible and your sacrifices unnoticed, leaving you drained and unrecognized. The truth is, your value doesn't lie in how often you show up, but in how thoughtfully and purposefully you choose to share yourself with others. When you create boundaries, you are essentially teaching others how to treat you. Boundaries are not about pushing people away or being selfish, but about drawing a clear line around what is acceptable and what is not in your life. Without them, people are left to guess where your limits are, and often they will overstep without realizing it. Boundaries give structure to relationships and create a sense of mutual respect because they show others that your time and energy have value. When you say yes to everything, you erase that line, and others may unintentionally begin to see you as someone whose needs don't matter. Respect is rarely gained from endless availability, it comes from discernment. When you decide what you will and will not allow, you communicate to others that your well-being is a priority. This doesn't mean you are rejecting people, but rather that you are protecting your capacity to show up in a healthy way. Boundaries act like a filter, separating what contributes to your growth from what diminishes it. People who genuinely care about you will honor those limits, and in doing so, they will value you more deeply because they see that you respect yourself. Boundaries also provide clarity. They remove the ambiguity that often creates conflict and misunderstanding in relationships. Without them, people may unknowingly cross lines that leave you feeling resentful, drained, or unappreciated. By setting limits, you remove the guesswork and create an environment where expectations are clear. This allows your interactions to be healthier, more balanced, and rooted in mutual understanding rather than frustration or unspoken tension. Psychologically, boundaries reinforce self-worth. Every time you enforce one, you send yourself a powerful message that you are worthy of care, time, and protection. This self-respect radiates outward and is felt by others. People can sense when you carry yourself with dignity and they respond to it. Boundaries are not barriers that separate you from love and connection. They are bridges that allow healthier, more respectful relationships to form. When you lack them, your presence becomes diluted, and people are less likely to treat you with the level of respect you deserve. It is important to recognize that boundaries are not only for other people, they are also for you. They remind you of your own priorities, your values, and your limits. They help you stay aligned with what matters most, so you don't lose yourself in the demands of others. When you ignore your boundaries, you might find yourself agreeing to things you don't believe in, committing to tasks that overwhelm you, or neglecting your own needs just to keep the peace. Over time, this erodes your sense of identity and leaves you feeling like you're living for everyone else instead of yourself. When you set boundaries, you give weight to your presence. People begin to notice that when you show up, it is intentional and meaningful, not just a default reaction. This makes your time and energy more impactful because others know you don't give them carelessly. Instead of being taken for granted, your presence is appreciated. By respecting your own limits, you create a ripple effect where others learn to respect them as well, and in turn, respect you as a person. Boundaries also teach responsibility. When you say no to constantly fixing, rescuing, or accommodating others, you allow them to take ownership of their own choices and behaviors. You are not rejecting them, you are empowering them. By stepping back, you create space for them to learn, grow, and face the consequences of their actions. This doesn't just protect you, it also helps them develop resilience and accountability. Without boundaries, you risk enabling unhealthy dynamics that prevent both you and others from growing. Cultural and social expectations often make people feel guilty about setting boundaries. We are conditioned to believe that saying yes is always kinder than saying no. But the truth is, saying yes without boundaries often leads to bitterness, exhaustion, and broken connections. A boundary is not unkind, it is an act of honesty. It communicates where you stand and prevents resentment from silently building beneath the surface. Far from pushing people away, boundaries preserve relationships by keeping them balanced and respectful. Another powerful aspect of boundaries is the way they shape how others perceive you. People naturally respect those who respect themselves. If you are always available and never say no, people may subconsciously interpret that as a lack of self-respect. But when you hold firm to your boundaries, you command respect without demanding it. Your limits create a sense of dignity around you, and people adjust their behavior accordingly. You are no longer seen as someone who can be pulled in every direction, but as someone whose time and energy deserve consideration. In the end, boundaries are not walls, they are doors that you control. You decide who comes in, how long they stay, and what role they play in your life. Without them, your value gets lost in constant availability. With them, your presence carries weight, your relationships thrive on respect, and you protect the most important resource you have, yourself. Protecting your energy is one of the most important commitments you can make to yourself because your energy is the fuel that drives every area of your life. Without energy, your focus diminishes, your mood declines, and your ability to show up for others in a meaningful way becomes compromised. Yet many people give their energy away without realizing it by saying yes to things that drain them, agreeing to responsibilities that weigh them down, or constantly engaging in conversations that leave them feeling depleted. It is not selfish to protect your energy. It is necessary for survival, growth, and emotional stability. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you are indirectly saying no to something that could nourish you. It might be your rest, your peace, your creativity, or your ability to spend time on things that actually bring you joy. When your energy is scattered across too many commitments, there is little left for the things that truly matter to you. Protecting your energy means recognizing that you have a limited supply each day, and once it's gone, you cannot pour from an empty cup. By being selective, you make sure that what you invest in reflects your values and contributes to your growth. Energy protection also involves being aware of emotional leaks. These are the small but constant drains that sap your strength without you realizing it. For example, engaging in arguments that go nowhere, spending too much time on social media comparing yourself to others, or entertaining relationships that are one-sided. Each of these may seem minor on their own, but collectively, they wear down your energy reserves. Protecting your energy means identifying these leaks and closing them off so you are not running on empty by the end of the day. Another important part of protecting your energy is learning to say no without guilt. Many people associate no with rejection, but in reality, no is a boundary that preserves your well-being. When you say no to commitments that overwhelm you, you are saying yes to your health and your peace of mind. This isn't about shutting people out. It's about choosing wisely what you can handle and what aligns with your capacity. The more comfortable you become with saying no, the easier it becomes to safeguard your time and emotional strength. Rest is another key factor in energy protection. In a world that glorifies business and productivity, rest is often seen as a luxury rather than a necessity. But rest is where your energy is replenished, where your mind processes, and where your body restores itself. Without adequate rest, you may feel like you are constantly running but never getting ahead. Protecting your energy means prioritizing downtime, allowing yourself to unplug, and creating moments of stillness where you can recharge and come back stronger. Surrounding yourself with the right people is also critical. The people you allow into your space can either energize you or drain you. Positive, supportive, and uplifting relationships add to your energy reserves, while negative, demanding, or toxic people deplete them. Protecting your energy requires discernment in your relationships, choosing those who respect your boundaries, appreciate your presence, and encourage your growth. This doesn't mean cutting everyone off, but it does mean limiting the access of those who consistently take more than they give. Even the environments you spend time in can impact your energy. Cluttered, noisy, or chaotic surroundings can subtly drain you, while calm, organized, and intentional spaces can restore you. Protecting your energy might mean creating a peaceful corner in your home, spending more time in nature, or being mindful about where you allow yourself to go. Just as you are selective about the people you let into your life, you can be selective about the environments you expose yourself to because they directly influence your state of mind and level of energy. Protecting your energy also involves mindfulness in how you think. Negative thought patterns, self-criticism, and constant worry consume an enormous amount of mental energy. If your mind is always occupied with what could go wrong, with regrets from the past, or with doubts about yourself, your energy will be drained before you even take action. Cultivating positive thinking, practicing gratitude, and reframing challenges can help conserve your energy by keeping your mental focus on what uplifts rather than what depletes you. Time management plays a role as well. Poorly managed time leads to stress, rushing, and unfinished tasks, all of which sap your energy. Protecting your energy means being intentional about how you structure your day, prioritizing what matters, and letting go of what doesn't. By organizing your time in alignment with your values, you minimize the unnecessary drains and maximize your ability to use your energy where it counts the most. Ultimately, protecting your energy is an ongoing practice of self-awareness. It requires constantly checking in with yourself to notice when you feel drained, overwhelmed, or stretched too thin, and then adjusting accordingly. It is about being proactive instead of reactive, recognizing that your energy is your most valuable resource. The more you protect it, the more you can give to the things and people that truly deserve your best self. True connections are not built on how often you are available, but on the respect that grows when people recognize your worth. When someone values you, they don't measure your importance by how quickly you respond to their requests or how many times you show up for them. They measure it by the quality of your presence, by the care you bring when you are there, and by the consistency of your character. Convenience may make someone like having you around, but respect is what makes them cherish your presence even when you're not always accessible. When people only value you because you are always there, what they really appreciate is the ease you provide, not the depth of who you are. It becomes about what they can get from you instead of the connection you both share. This kind of relationship often feels one-sided because it relies on your constant giving and their constant taking. There is little balance, and over time, you may begin to feel that you're valued more for what you do than for who you are. That is the difference between convenience and respect. Convenience keeps you close because you're useful, while respect keeps you close because you are meaningful. Respect is revealed when someone honors your boundaries and still values your presence. For example, if you say you're unavailable and they don't guilt you, pressure you, or make you feel bad, that shows they see you as a person with needs, not just a resource to be tapped into. This type of respect strengthens a bond because it is rooted in mutual recognition. Your needs matter as much as theirs. It creates a foundation of equality where the relationship isn't defined by constant sacrifice on your part, but by balance and understanding from both sides. Another important aspect of respect is patience. When someone respects you, they don't demand immediate responses or constant attention. They understand that you have your own life, your own goals, and your own responsibilities. They are willing to wait for your time and presence because they know it is worth it. This patience reflects a deeper connection, one that doesn't rely on instant gratification, but on a long-term appreciation of who you are and what you bring. Convenience, on the other hand, creates a false sense of closeness. It may feel good in the short term to be needed constantly, but over time you begin to realize that the connection is shallow. When the dynamic shifts and you are no longer as available, those who only valued the convenience may distance themselves or even disappear. This reveals that their bond with you was not built on respect, but on how much they could access you without effort. Real connection doesn't crumble when access is limited. It adapts and endures because it was never about convenience in the first place. Relationships built on respect are also more sustainable. They don't exhaust you because you are not being drained by constant demands. Instead, they energize you because there is reciprocity. You give, but you also receive. You show up, but others also show up for you. This kind of balance creates longevity in relationships, where both sides feel valued and supported. Without respect, relationships quickly become transactional, leaving one person depleted and the other oblivious to the imbalance. Respect also shows up in the way people speak to you and about you. When someone values you for who you are, their language reflects admiration, care, and appreciation. They don't minimize your boundaries or belittle your needs. Instead, they affirm them and encourage you to keep protecting yourself. Contrast this with someone who only values convenience. They may become frustrated or critical when you are not as accessible as they want, revealing that their focus was never on you as a person, but on how easy you made their life. It is also worth noting that respect fosters deeper emotional intimacy. When both people acknowledge each other's boundaries and honor them, trust grows. You feel safe being yourself because you know you won't be punished for not always being available. That safety creates room for vulnerability, honesty, and genuine connection. True intimacy cannot exist where there is pressure to always be available because pressure undermines authenticity. Respect, on the other hand, nurtures authenticity by giving both people space to be human. True connections also withstand time and distance. If respect is present, you don't have to check in every hour or prove your loyalty by being endlessly accessible. The bond remains strong even in your absence because it is built on trust and understanding rather than on constant presence. This is why some of the most valuable relationships in life are not the ones with daily communication, but the ones where both people know they can count on each other when it truly matters. Respect bridges the gaps that convenience cannot. Ultimately, relationships that thrive on respect bring peace, while relationships based on convenience create pressure. When you recognize this difference, you begin to protect your energy more intentionally and invest in the connections that truly feed your soul. You stop chasing approval through availability and start cultivating bonds where you are valued for who you are, not just for how often you can be there. When you constantly place everyone else's needs above your own, you unconsciously send yourself a message that your desires and well-being are less important. Over time, this chips away at your self-respect, making you believe that your value is tied only to how much you can give or how much you can sacrifice. Prioritizing yourself does not mean disregarding others. It means acknowledging that your own needs deserve space, attention, and care. When you take time to listen to what your body and mind require, you reinforce the belief that you are worthy of rest, peace, and fulfillment. Self-prioritization is the foundation of emotional balance. Without it, you run the risk of stretching yourself so thin that you no longer feel whole. Yes, you give to someone else without considering your own limits takes a small piece of your energy and leaves you with less to function on. Eventually, this imbalance shows up as frustration, fatigue, or resentment, not because you don't care about others, but because you have neglected the care you owe yourself. Choosing to respect your own boundaries restores this balance and protects your inner stability. Burnout often sneaks in when self-prioritization is absent. At first, it might feel rewarding to be helpful, dependable, and always present for those around you. But the body and mind cannot sustain endless giving without receiving. You may notice signs like irritability, exhaustion, or even physical symptoms such as headaches and tension when you've ignored your own needs for too long. Burnout isn't a sign of weakness. It is a signal that you've gone too long without putting yourself first. By making self-care a priority, you prevent this decline and maintain the ability to give in healthier, more sustainable ways. Resentment also grows when your needs are constantly pushed aside. Even if you never say it out loud, a quiet voice within begins to ask, "When will it be my turn?" If that voice goes unanswered, you start to feel undervalued not only by others but by yourself. This internal conflict can damage relationships because the resentment leaks out in subtle ways: short tempers, withdrawal, or passive resistance. Self-prioritization prevents this by ensuring that you give from a place of fullness rather than depletion. When you respect yourself enough to care for your needs, you show up to relationships with a sense of balance and authenticity. Another way that self-prioritization protects self-respect is by teaching others how to treat you. If you consistently neglect yourself to meet everyone else's demands, people assume you are comfortable with that dynamic. But when you demonstrate that your needs are non-negotiable, others learn to honor them as well. This does not push people away. It actually attracts those who recognize and admire your self-respect. It separates those who value your well-being from those who only value your convenience. In this way, prioritizing yourself filters out relationships that may be draining you without your awareness. There is also a psychological empowerment that comes from prioritizing yourself. Each time you choose to rest, to say no, or to invest in your growth, you reinforce the belief that you matter. This builds confidence and self-esteem because you are affirming your worth through your actions. Instead of waiting for others to validate your importance, you begin to cultivate that validation from within. This inner strength reduces dependence on external approval and makes you more resilient in the face of life's challenges. Self-prioritization also enhances clarity. When you are constantly catering to others, your own goals and values can become blurry. You may lose track of what truly matters to you because you are so focused on keeping others satisfied. By putting yourself first, you give yourself the space to reflect, to set intentions, and to pursue what genuinely fulfills you. This clarity doesn't only benefit you, it allows you to be more intentional in your relationships because you are no longer acting from a place of confusion or exhaustion. Another critical aspect is that prioritizing yourself prevents emotional exhaustion. Your emotional energy is like a battery. It needs time to recharge. If you give without recharging, you eventually run dry. This exhaustion can lead to a sense of emptiness, where even the things you once enjoyed no longer bring joy. By respecting your limits and choosing to restore your energy before giving it away again, you protect your emotional health and maintain the ability to engage with life meaningfully. When you make your needs a priority, you also model healthy behavior for others. Whether it's children, friends, or colleagues, people around you observe how you treat yourself. By showing that you value your time, your health, and your peace, you encourage others to do the same for themselves. This ripple effect creates healthier environments where mutual respect and balance become the norm rather than constant self-sacrifice. In the end, prioritizing yourself is an act of honesty. It acknowledges that you are human, with limits and needs that deserve recognition. It frees you from the cycle of neglecting your own well-being just to maintain appearances of generosity. Instead of diminishing your ability to care for others, it strengthens it by ensuring that you remain whole, energized, and emotionally balanced. Self-respect begins when you decide that your needs are not optional but essential to your overall well-being. Your value doesn't come from being endlessly accessible. It comes from being intentional about how and where you invest your presence. When you share your time and energy selectively, the impact of what you bring is amplified. People begin to recognize that when you show up, it is not by accident or out of obligation, but out of choice. That choice makes your presence feel significant because it carries weight and meaning. The difference between scattering yourself everywhere and choosing wisely is the difference between being overlooked and being deeply appreciated. When you make yourself available to everyone all the time, your presence risks becoming background noise. It blends into the routine and loses its uniqueness. But when you are intentional, people notice. They sense that your attention is not something that can be demanded, but something you grant purposefully. This awareness changes the way they perceive you. Instead of assuming you will always be there, they value the times you are because they know it required thought, effort, and consideration. That selectiveness makes your presence a gift rather than an expectation. Being intentional with your energy also ensures that what you give is meaningful. When you spread yourself too thin, you may show up in body but not in spirit. You might be physically present but emotionally drained, unable to give your best. On the other hand, when you choose fewer commitments and conserve your energy, you arrive fully engaged, attentive, and genuine. This quality of presence has far more value than quantity. People remember the moments when you were truly there, not the times when you were half distracted or stretched beyond your capacity. Your value increases when people recognize that your time is not infinite. Scarcity breeds appreciation. Just like a rare gem holds more worth than something found everywhere, your limited but intentional presence creates a sense of respect around you. People understand that you are not someone to be taken for granted. They adjust how they interact with you, often becoming more thoughtful, more respectful, and more grateful because they realize your energy is precious. That awareness deepens the connection and elevates the way they treat you. Another dimension of intentional presence is that it aligns with your priorities. By carefully choosing where you invest your energy, you ensure that your actions reflect your values. This creates consistency between who you are and how you show up, which builds integrity. People sense when someone is acting with integrity, and it draws respect naturally. When you say yes selectively, you are not just protecting yourself, you are reinforcing your identity and ensuring that your presence is always an authentic reflection of what matters to you. Intentional presence also guards against resentment. When you give out of obligation, you often end up feeling drained or unappreciated. That hidden frustration can damage relationships because it seeps into your tone, your body language, and your attitude, even if you don't voice it. But when you give because you've chosen to, the energy behind your actions is different. It comes from a place of willingness, not pressure, and that difference is felt by others. They can tell when your presence is genuine, and it leaves a stronger, more positive impression. People are drawn to those who seem grounded, balanced, and self-aware. When you are intentional with your time and energy, you project these qualities. It shows that you are not controlled by constant demands, but guided by your own values and priorities. This sense of stability attracts respect because people trust those who manage themselves well. They see you as reliable not because you are always available, but because when you do commit, you follow through with strength and clarity. Intentional presence also allows you to cultivate deeper, more meaningful relationships. Instead of spreading yourself thin across countless shallow connections, you can invest more deeply in the ones that matter. These relationships thrive because they receive your best self rather than fragments of your attention. Depth always outweighs breadth in human connection, and by being selective, you allow room for real intimacy, trust, and mutual respect to grow. People can sense when they have the privilege of your undivided attention, and it strengthens the bond. This way of living also nurtures your own inner peace. Knowing that you are choosing carefully where your energy goes gives you a sense of control and alignment. It prevents the chaos that comes from trying to be everything for everyone. Instead, you move with clarity, knowing that your presence has purpose wherever you place it. That calmness radiates outward, and people naturally value being around someone who exudes peace and intentionality. Your energy becomes something others admire and respect because it is not scattered but centered. Ultimately, your true value shines when your presence is purposeful. It is not about being everywhere at once or constantly available to anyone who calls. It is about being present in a way that leaves an impact, that communicates care, and that shows integrity. The less you dilute yourself with constant availability, the more powerful and meaningful your presence becomes in the moments you do share. That is what makes you valuable. Your choice to give with intention rather than obligation, and your ability to protect your energy so that when you do show up, you show up fully.